Welcome back. Now, last year alone, South Africa exported over $5 million worth of iron and steel to the U.S. And while Trump has doubled U.S. metal tariffs to 50%, the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of South Africa is of the view that the local steel master plan has stalled amidst it all. SEIFSA's President Elias Monage joins us with more detail. Before we get into your call to reform policy within the industry, I think, Elias, let's start off by you just taking me through the challenges the industry has faced. Just paint a picture of the state of the steel industry.
I mean, thanks to you and to the viewers. I think firstly, there is a lot of demand for the steel industry across the country and across different state entities, whether it's Transnet, it's Eskom, it's PRASA, it's water and sanitation, municipalities. So generally, if we then talk about the infrastructure, that's where the steel industry comes in, because it's the backbone of any infrastructure in any form or shape, including even communications, because you need then to have certain things done. You need to build roads, you need to build dams, so they require steel. So now there is a lot of demand for steel for the past 3, 4, 5 years. And as a result of that, we then see a decline in terms of employment. We then see a decline in terms of the order book from different entities. The second part of the problem is what I call trade illicit, where there are unscrupulous individuals that they will then bring products into the country without following a particular tariff code. The third part of the problem also is around the policing thereof, because it must then be policed by SARS and other related institutions that deals with that thing. The fourth part is the ability for South African Bureau of Standards, because if SABS ability have been strapped to the bone for many years, it then means the standard have been eroded by lack of competency and the capacity of the institution. You also then have a situation where there is an element of dumping from various countries that they bring steel in the country, and as a result, people are then looking at cheaper products, and that's part of the problem that we're then faced with. And then, in the main, if the demand is very low, everything else then collapses. The other component that we're then faced with is that the current policies, if we were then to talk about procurement policy of state, we have seen government that procured transformers at the value of 7 billion rand from various countries, despite the fact that we have ailing transformer companies. Some of them they've closed down, some they've been placed under business rescue, some they have been liquidated. So we have lost an income as a sector, as a country, in a form of tax, because if 7 billion rand, we're acquiring this thing somewhere else, it then creates a problem. Equally so, if Transnet, they have acquired 1064 locomotives somewhere, again, at the value of 51 billion rand is a major problem, because that means the entire supply chain for the rail sector is going down south, because from the primary to secondary, we cannot then do anything. Equally so, the other part of the problem is the energy security, because if we don't have efficient and effective secured energy in any given time, you cannot then fabricate, you cannot then run anything, you cannot then do the blasting, you cannot then do paint. Paint shop is basically down south. And these are some of the issues that they are replicating factors adding to the current discourse that we are having as a sector. Now, where are we? We are at the stage where, because the state of the industry or the sector is downwards, is facing downwards trajectory in various forms and shape, we're then saying we need then to rethink and reimagine a new plan for the sector, so that if we then talk about the steel industry, it must then encompass other factors. We need then to have iron ore. That is part of the steel policy, because if iron ore is outside, we're not going then to do beneficiation. We're not going to have an allocation of steel that is geared towards local industry in terms of beneficiation. If you don't have the rail infrastructure from Transnet, your movement of iron ore to primary steel producer, it then becomes a major problem, because to move iron ore from a mine to a blast furnace, you then require the locals and the wagons. If you don't have it, and the tariffs are so high, it basically collapses your logistics. Thirdly, if you don't have efficiency and security of energy to the blast furnace, again, you cannot then do anything together with the entire supply chain. So these are some of the issues that we're then saying. It then means we need then to bring all the role players under one roof to reimagine a new policy for the steel industry that must then take into account the load demands and the infrastructure for the country, so that if we're then to rebuild the entire infrastructure, what is the role of the sector? We might then look at things like you build, operate, and transfer. You can then build certain things on concessionary basis, given the fact that we are aware that government, they don't have the money.
All right, so you talk about a reimagined plan that includes all stakeholders to sort of attack some of the issues playing out in the steel industry. That aside, you touched on this as well. We have the tariff story playing out in the US, and that impacting us as well. Just walk me through the extent those additional tariffs of 50% impact the industry.
I mean, if we then look at the steel that generally it comes from different countries to the US, year on year, we're talking about more than 30 million tons of steel that goes to the US, not from South Africa alone. I mean, in South Africa, China, Canada, India, and various other places. If you then impose the 30%, it then means that tonnage of steel that ordinarily is sent to that place, we need then to find new customers, new destiny, because if you are then to pay 50% tariff on that, it basically then kills everything. Your clients on the other side, they're not going to pay the 50%. They'll basically then cancel this. You end up with steel in your respective countries, and you don't have the clients to sell that excessive steel in terms of production. So the implications is major, because it then means if you don't have the market for that steel, you are then going to have a problem in terms of either you're facing short-time retrenchments, and some they might even close down, because no one's going then to pay the 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum. And secondly, by virtue of increasing the tariffs, it also then increases the inflation for the US market. So these are some of the issues that we're then confronted with, and we're then faced with that specific situation that we need then to look at.
All right, Elias, thanks for your time and joining us. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. That was SEIFSA's President, Elias Monage.